So this lightning talk is about how the pandemic changed the usage of the virtual learning environment to become a more flexible and inclusive environment. And I'm going to give you some practice and some implementation tips of how I did it. And we're going to talk about the overall layout, but also how specifically you can do this as the way you can organize your VLE. Now, are you like me that you get like 500 emails a day? And particularly even the worst, if someone asks you to do something and there is an instruction, and by the time you get around to do it, it's like, oh, is buried in another 500 emails. And the same goes for students. And particularly as we were in the pandemic, we obviously had to communicate very differently because we didn't see students face to face. So we were bombarded with emails and things got missed. So the way we kind of looked at it slightly differently was that how can we use the VLE to actually support our learning and getting the most efficient communication with the students. Now, here, I'm not saying emails are not have a place, but there's a time and a place where we can use other resources more efficiently. So at University of Manchester, we use Blackboard. I've heard other people using Canvas and Moodle, etc. And they kind of do the same thing. But the key thing here is to make sure you set up your VLE in such a way that it makes most sense for the students. So here is one of my courses. It's a third-year elective. It's called Applied Practical Investing. And obviously, the first thing is to have a view. They come in, is appealing-ish, that they kind of actually, okay, this looks quite interesting. And the next thing is to take full advantage of the column in the left-hand side and making sure that it's set up very clearly where everything is, even if it's for academic or for admin purposes, because the worst thing is to let the students guess. Now, the basic thing of having the course outline, knowing where the ILOs are, important dates for assessment, but also a discussion forum board that is set up by topic. So again, it's easy for students to find places where they can find specific question or deposit specific question, because they're very unlikely to be the only one with that question. Now, as I said to you, I will show you two ways of how I set up my VLEs to change the usage of it to be more flexible. So the first thing is I've set it up per week. So what do I mean by that? So on the left-hand side, I outline the course per week and per date. And if you click on those, under each, you'll have what is expected to happen in that week. And you'll have a range of different activities or readings, whatever it might be. Now, if you click on the link, you'll see whatever it might be that you want. The real thing here, the real nugget, is that you also have them color coordinated. So different activities, subject if it's a quiz or it's a formative assessment, they have different colors. So student can then align with what they're expected to do. Now, for each week, as the introduction, we have an overview, and this is where the reduction of email really comes in, because the students can click through and they can see what's expected to happen in each week. If it is what they're going to cover in the lecture, if they're going to have any guest speakers, if there's any activities, any deadlines, anything, they'll find that there. So I don't need to constantly send out emails. This week you're doing this week you're doing that. It's all there ready for them to see. The other real thing here is the study chart, which we've organized per week. So we've set out what exactly is going to happen in this week, but also more importantly, how long do we expect each activity to take? Now, with the VLE, it's quite easy for example, things like video, but we've also tried to put some timing on things like reading a document, and to get the students to be able to plan their timing for flexible learning. We also, again, color code this, so the type of activities, and also a total of how much do they expect to spend on just the structured learning material that week. Now, you can also organize your VLE per topic. So this is another course of mine. And on the left-hand side, actually, rather than dates, I've now put topics. So for each topic, it starts roughly the same. So you have an overview, and it says what's going to happen in this topic, but you also have a study chart. So this study chart, again, outline exactly what is in the topic, what's PowerPoint, what's videos, and what it contains, and also how long the minimum time is to be spent on this. Now, in addition, we have summed it all up, but we've also suggested some own additional study time for this particular topic. And that again helps the student to plan what they should spend their time on. Now, another important thing is your overall study schedule. So I've created a particular part that is the overall study schedule and how to study for the course, again, trying to help them. This is where you combine now the topics with the weeks. Okay, so you've got your different topics and we've outlined the timing of the course and taking the structured learning environment and your own study time to give you an idea of how much you spend on each week. Now, this obviously, again, helps students to plan and the flexible learning. To round off, obviously, again, say we got as well color coordinated to tell you exactly what to do and when. But to round off, what are the things you need to consider? It is initially very time consuming to set it up. Some people might find that, I have to do this week, and there's lacking flexibility. But again, this is not an order, this is a guidance. So actually what we found that setting up the VLEs in either of these ways support the flexible learning. It reduces the unnecessary communication with emails, etc. It helps the student to manage their time, and it does cater for much more different type of learning styles and create a much more inclusive environment. Thank you very much.
Patricia, I'm going to ask you a question.
Go for it.
Color coding.
Yeah.
Do you also consider using icons to represent?
Absolutely. So it's interesting. All this, I'm very open to feedback. I know some colors are not perfect, and we've had a discussion around how can you put a minimum amount of time? What if they only do that? And I said, well, this is why this is not a gospel. This is a guidance to try to support students. And again, one of the purposes being avoiding to constantly bombard them with email is to setting it out that here is a guidance for you, and you can take it what you want from it, but it hopefully supports you in your learning. So absolutely, icons is a great idea. I'll take that. I'll nick that idea.
Yeah, so it's that thing around colour blindness. And
absolutely.
Colour on its own is not a good indicator of difference.
Well, it's also accessibility rules as well.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And that's kind of one of the areas where we are developing, because we know with color and we know with different fonts. So it's kind of, we're working our way through it. And that's why we've used different type of learning resources as well. So we have videos, we have articles, we have PowerPoints, we have self-studies to try to make sure we can make it as inclusive as possible. But I think the idea with icons is great. I'll definitely take that on board.
Fab. On the icons, we've seen a couple of times a dial. Does anybody know in the room what that dial is? Right, so you would have seen this fuel gauge, the green, the amber, the red. It's not called Blackboard anymore, is it? It's the ally tool, and it gives you a rating of how accessible against a set of rules it is. So red, I don't like the fact it's red, amber, green. Basically, if the dial's to the left, it's not good. If the dial's to the right, it's pretty good. And if it's in the middle, it's all right. It could still be better. Questions in the room for Patricia? Or actually, Megan's got a question. So Megan.
Yeah, just a note on Blackboard Ally. It's great for text and it's great for images. It's really bad if you've got anything mathematical, because it doesn't understand it. So if you've got mathematical stuff, so we've got a lot of maths lecturers who did stuff they prepared their lecture notes and stuff in LaTeX, and when we had to make everything accessible, they had a huge headache trying to make that fit with Blackboard Ally and actually readable with screen readers, and they weren't the same thing. Blackboard Ally green rating doesn't mean it's going to work well with screen readers.
No, and we got a lot of people to convert to HTML files as opposed to PDF because of that, actually. And we have quite a bit of guidance on the UCL website if you want to know how to do that same stuff in an accessible way as possible, because we have exactly the same problem. There's a lot of export of LaTeX to slide formats, which also aren't great, which is fun. Questions in the room for Patricia?
So the accessibility, was that enforced in university, particularly things like LaTeX and mathematics?
Yeah, no, so I'm the first one who have done this in terms of as a development from basically from the pandemic, where everyone's like, well, we sent an email, but but you know, that email has gone missing. So it was a way of trying to create you know, ownership for the students and creating more flexibility. So this is a learning progress. So I'm not sure I've got 100% right, but I've tried different versions of doing it per week versus doing it per topic, and I've tried them in different courses, and again just trying to see what the student thinks works best for them. I have another course actually we didn't talk about where we do it in modules. So we actually have 4 topics in each modules, and we structure the VLE in modules. So again, it's trying to just work out, you know, and what works for the students and what they like. And I can't say I have any clear answers yet, but any input is hugely welcome, because I'm aware that with the color coding is one that we need to look into further, but also things like making sure all the videos have text on them. Is really important. And you know, in the pandemic we were all just throwing ourselves in there, and now when we actually get a chance to make the most out of it and saying, okay, what can we improve here to make this a bit more, you know, inclusive for everybody. So I've gone through all of that actually and made sure all the videos has text on them now as well, which obviously we didn't have initially. So yeah, fair point. But it's not a university-wide initiative. It's something I've started implementing, and quite a few of my colleagues are now taking up, because they realize it saves them a lot of sending emails. And also students can't say, oh, I missed that email, because they can always go in and check whenever they want.
So legally, we have 2 pieces of legislation where we have a duty, which the Equalities Act from 2010 and the public sector bodies, the PS bar from 2018. And actually requirements have actually gone up in terms of web accessibility under the PS bar recently. Interestingly, on that whole thing, 3 years ago, I wrote a piece for Wonk on the actually mind the accessibility gap, mind that gap of our rush to tech. So my job in 2018 was to train the UCL community on how to be accessible. So there are legal things. We did have another question towards back.
I just want to ask, so this is done on a module basis, right? I wondered how would it be too much of a headache to make this work on a program basis, degree program?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a really good idea. And I think this came as a development from the pandemic, obviously, and I've tried to keep the bits that works. Obviously, we continue developing. Now, I think it could be potentially desirable, but as you say, one of the consideration is that this takes a lot of coordination and a lot of initial input setup, and you know, people have time constraints, so I think it needs to come from a higher power. Would you think it's a good idea, though? May I shoot the question back? Would you think this would work on a program?
Well, we sort of do something similar on a program, but it's much easier because it is a bespoke program where no choices, so everybody does exactly the same thing. Well, not quite, but almost. And it's done by email. So I think what you're saying about putting on the VLE is quite a nice idea, so it's all in one place. So I think we will do that for next year. But yes, it's easier for us because we don't have huge numbers of options.
On that template stuff, so for a long time we've had a baseline, a connected learning baseline, and these things are actually all in that baseline. And in theory, and Karen will attest to this, it is a baseline, she's not paying attention, that everyone across the institution should adhere to, and every new course is given a template that is this structure, and we recommend times and everything else. Now, whether people stick to that baseline and don't mess with colours and all kinds of other things is a whole other ball game. I spent the pandemic in a faculty working with them. I went and looked at some modules and went, right, so we haven't got consistency between modules. We've also got 6 people teaching on the same module when every section in the middle course looks completely different. And somebody thought it'd be great fun to put grey text on a peach background because they thought it would stand out. So it's a fantastic idea. Having been there, tried it, it's a lot easier said than done. But if you are rolling out new things, we had to do a lift and shift of our Moodle about 4 years ago because registering being coded every module. That becomes easy because then everything is in that new template. Whether it stays in that template is a whole other ball game entirely.
No, I think just kind of add to that, as I said, as I started doing that, I actually have quite a few colleagues that have adopted the topic approach, that they find that particularly if you have numerous contributors to the course and they have different topics, so they quite like that they can structure it in such a way. Obviously, we've taken a bit further and then tried to tie the topic with timing, particularly as one of my courses is a very short course, so you don't have much time to deal with. But there have been some adaptation of actually, if we can organize ourselves per topic, that actually can be quite useful, not just for us, but for the students as well. So we have seen some adaptation of it, which is great. So we keep on learning and we keep on developing, but yeah, it's that time factor, isn't it?
Right. Any other questions for Patricia? In which case, can we say thank you?
Thank you.